Greg Chiecko grew up in Chicopee, Massachusetts, the youngest of 4 boys. His parents owned a local garden company, but his father told him and his brothers that rule number 1 was, I pay for your education, but you don't go into the family business. Greg went on to Syracuse University, where he earned his business degree. He had applied to work in television ad sales in Dayton, Ohio, when his father fell ill. Greg came to temporarily help out the family business during this time. It wasn't breaking a rule if it was only temporary. However, as his father's health improved, Greg was seen as a huge asset to the company. He was hooked and stayed on with the family for the next 10 years. When his parents were ready to retire and close down, Greg reflected on what he wanted to do next. Reading the book What Color is Your Parachute, which outlines carefully figuring out what one is best at and what one enjoys the most, his conclusion was the Big E. Greg was not foreign into the Big E. In fact, he grew up both attending and assisting the exposition as the chair of the Big E's Junior Fair Board, which was run at the time by Wayne McGarry, Greg's mentor. Greg and Wayne had kept in touch throughout the years, so when Greg called to see if any real positions were available, Wayne jumped at the chance. The Eastern States Exposition was in the process of expanding the fair from 12 to 17 days. Once that expansion was finalized, they needed all the help they could get. Greg could sunset his very quick stint as a pharmaceutical sales rep and join the fair full-time as its sales manager. One of his first objectives was to fill the Big E on additional days and increase overall attendance by 40%. Greg harnessed the power of technology to achieve this goal. When he started, online advance ticketing was not offered. Prospective guests would send in self-addressed stamped envelopes to get tickets. He quickly modernized many processes which achieved his goal. When one is able to increase attendance by 40%, one very quickly becomes the director of sales. Greg's task was to now oversee sales, sponsorship, midway attractions, midway rides, concessionaires, special events, group sales, and act as liaison to the Avenue of States. Greg also headed up the government relations efforts and served on many external boards, holding leadership positions including the Greater Springfield Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Springfield Rotary Club, the International Association of Fairs and Expositions, and of course, NEAAPA. Greg joined NEAAPA when the infamous Ed Connor brought him to his very first meeting at the 57 restaurant at the Ramada in Boston to discuss proposed changes in the Massachusetts amusement ride regulations. As the story goes, Tom Morrow looked at Greg and said, "Welcome to the board." With the help of his team at the Big E, NEAAPA elevated the production of the Directory and Buyer's Guide. Greg served as NEAAPA's president in 2010 when our first official financial budget was adopted. In 2018, Bob Johnson of the Outdoor Amusement Business Association announced that he was retiring from the role of its president and CEO. E.J. Dean oversaw the search committee and reached out to Greg to gauge his interest in the job. Greg's first thought was not wanting to move to Florida. When he found out that wouldn't be a problem, he said, "Let's do it." Since 2019, Greg has led the financial stability of the OABA and has grown its balance sheet considerably. He led the organization during the pandemic, assisting their members navigate survival through the many various reopening plans. Relations have increased with other sister organizations, such as the International Association of Fairs and Expos, who now all collaborate to advocate for solutions to major industry issues. The OABA continues to grow and thrive under Greg's leadership. What began as a day at the fair became more than a 24-year career and a juggernaut to the outdoor amusement business. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as we induct friend and colleague Greg Chiecko into the NEAAPA Hall of Fame.